Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
What a historical time we are living in. We live in a time when the Ram Janmabhoomi temple has happened from beginning to the end. What a wonderful time. Thank you all for showing up in this cold weather. My name is Rajiv Malhotra. I'm part of CoHNA. We are part of the Coalition of Hindus of North America. Many of you know us. We are a grassroots organization looking to protect the collective interests of Hindus, of the Hindu community, and educate parents, children, educators, and so on about Hindu traditions and communities. We would like to thank our supporting organizations who work to serve our Dharma. These organizations who work with us for this event are the Infinity Foundation, WAVES, World Association of Vedic Studies, Hindi USA, HSS, Innovation. And we would like to thank these organizations for supporting us as a Hindu community. I would like to personally thank all the volunteers of CoHNA who have worked very hard to get this event going. And last but not least, I would like to thank Sri Swaminarayan Mandir Vaktaldam here for hosting us in this important discussion. Today, we have the dynamic speaker, Sri Rajiv Malhotra ji. Everybody knows him. I don't think I need to do any introductions, but we will get to it soon. There are many challenges that lie ahead of us. If you haven't signed up with CoHNA, please do so, where you'll find out what the challenges are ahead of us and what we're doing to protect our Dharma. We will need your help in the next coming weeks and months, and I believe Nikunj will speak. Nikunj Dwivedi, who's the president of CoHNA, will speak next after me. So I don't want to take up much of your time. I would like to invite Nikunj Dwivedi, president of CoHNA, the hardest working man serving our Hindu community, to give you a short glimpse of what's happening with caste narrative in the US, especially in New Jersey. Thank you. Namaste. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, Yashbhai. So it's my pleasure to have all of you here, and I'm really happy all of you joined. I know it's cold outside, we had a snowstorm, but the fact that all of you are here is a testament to the fact that you care about this important issue. Now, before Rajiv starts to talk about this really important book that he's written, I want to give a little perspective of what's going on in the United States and in Canada, but we'll focus on the US first. It all started about 5 or 6 years ago, when a group called Equality Labs, which says that they are here to protect and help the marginalized communities like Dalits. They started with a survey. The survey basically asked whether they would actually, whether Dalits have experienced caste discrimination in the United States. And there were a lot of issues with the survey, but nobody cared about methodology. What was important was the survey was used as a propaganda tool to launch an attack on the Hindu American and the Indian American community. And it was first given authenticity by Representative Pramila Jayapal, where she held a congressional briefing on Capitol Hill about this survey. Then, slowly and slowly, the survey started to come mainstream. Many media outlets, many people decided to take this as it's truth. But nobody questioned the methodology except for the Hindus. There were a few people who did question the methodology, but they were ignored. This survey became the gold standard to target the community and portray us as a bunch of serial oppressors, casteist people. And this survey was then used to pass several policies and caste laws in the United States. There are about 20 universities today in America that have policies on caste-based discrimination based on this survey and the anti-Hindu rhetoric by Equality Labs and many other groups. Harvard being one of them, even Rutgers University in a way has it. There's UCLA who's looking at it. There's also Cal State University system. 23 universities within California that fall into Cal State. UC Davis, so many different universities have adopted these caste policies based on anti-Hindu information provided. And in there, when you look at the resolution passed by these universities, it clearly targets Hindu texts. It says that the caste discrimination was existing in Rig Veda. So I'm sure Rajiv will talk about that in his book. But so they are portraying the fact that this is inherent in our community. Now, why is that a problem? So I'll come to that in a second. You may have known that the city of Seattle was the first city in the United States to pass this caste legislation. And the information again was supplied by the groups like Equality Labs and many others, and targeting directly Hindu Dharma and Hindu scriptures. The problem then started with another place called California. Now California has two problems, multiple of them, but let's say two problems. The first instance of caste discrimination was in June of 2020 when Cisco Systems was sued by the California Department of Civil Rights, alleging that the two upper caste Indian engineers decided discriminated against a Dalit engineer and refused to give him the offers, like a promotion, many things like that. That case was recently dismissed against, early last year, was recently dismissed. But what it did was it created an entire rhetoric from Oprah all the way to New York Times to you name it. Decided to take that as a fact rather than questioning whether this is actually true or not. So for 2 years, the engineers, the Indian engineers Sundar Iyer and Ramana Kompella were dragged into public court, essentially a court of opinions, and their names were tarnished. And 2 years later, they stand vindicated when the judge threw out the case against them. But the damage was already done. All of these laws, these caste-based policies in universities, many places were predicated on this particular Cisco case. Then came the accusation against the BAPS Swaminarayan Sampradaya that they had deployed forced labor using Dalits and things like that. That also case is sort of like on shaky grounds right now. But it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, truth doesn't matter. It's really propaganda, and we're against a very sophisticated machinery that Rajiv actually talks about in his Snakes in the Ganga book. And I'm sure he'll talk about it today. But we're against a very sophisticated machinery. Now, why is this a problem? I can go on, but I want to conclude by some very quick points about why this is a problem. Number one, if you are a business and if you own a business and if there's a caste law, you could be targeted. So let's say you decided to employ someone. You're not looking at their caste. You're not looking at that. You're just seeing whether the guy is doing the job or not. And then you decide to fire that person. You could be sued for caste discrimination. Okay, and you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars defending this, number one. Number two, if you are a professor at a university and you decide to give a bad grade to a student who happens to be from a quote-unquote Dalit class or Dalit caste or whatever you want to say, you can be sued for caste discrimination. If you are a student who decides that you want to celebrate Diwali and you want to cater vegetarian food, you could be sued for caste discrimination. It sounds ridiculous, but in November 2021, UC Davis group, there's a group at UC Davis, decided to launch a campaign against Diwali that says celebration of Diwali is a celebration of violent Brahminical gods and goddesses who are naturally oppressive against Dalits, Muslims, Adivasis, and Sikhs. So if you think this is a ridiculous claim, this is what's going on in universities. Just 3 days ago, someone actually mentioned to me that she was canceled on campus for hosting by the DEI, this is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department of this university. She was canceled for talking about Hindu phobia and challenging the caste issues. She was canceled. So our students on campuses are subjected to this attack, and they are scared, they're shy of talking about it because they don't have the information. So I'm really happy that Rajiv Ji has come up with this primer that will give them that information to fight back and challenge these types of things. So now let's talk about New Jersey for a second. There is a possibility that the caste law is going to be introduced in New Jersey. So let's get ready, because the fight is coming here. The fight has restarted in California, just so you know, as of now, because these activists will never stop. This is the battle between dharma and adharma, and the forces of adharma will never stop. So the forces of dharma cannot stop. So we're all here today to listen to Rajiv Ji, but there's a call to action, and I'm sure he will talk about that too. The call to action is we all need to get educated about what the issue is and take up this issue, because if it comes to New Jersey, it's going to impact all of us sitting here and many people, including our kids. They will be portrayed, the moment your last name is Trivedi, Malhotra, Patel, whatever you want to say, you are going to be considered casteist. And you will be canceled in universities, or you will be subjected to discrimination and prejudice. From 6th grade on in America, from 6th grade on, kids are taught that Hinduism equals caste. So think about it, from 6th grade on, there's a prejudice in the minds of all Americans about Hinduism in general. So when they come in and are in the juries, are in administration, and they are going to be thinking about whether you were a casteist or not, or your son or daughter is a casteist or not, they already have a prejudiced notion about what caste means. So we're up against a sophisticated machinery that's not going to stop. And it is our dharma, our responsibility to take action today to make sure that these laws do not come to fruition. Because there is not enough evidence of any kind of systemic caste discrimination in America. We're not talking about India, there are different issues, but we're talking about the United States of America. So here we are today, and Aparnaji, please come over. Aparnaji from our team, Aparna Virmani from our New Jersey chapter is going to introduce Rajiv ji. So thank you, that's all I had. Let's get to it.
So, having a prolific career long time ago in multinational companies, right? 30 years ago, he started a journey alone, sparked by his conscience, unselfish behavior, to give back the heritage for a higher purpose, as we call it Yagna. Isn't that correct, Rajivji? With two purposes in mind: to bring out the contributions of our culture that has not been brought out correctly, properly, and displayed, and to defend the unfair attacks on our culture. Without much help from any organizations, any political organizations, any individuals, because this was controversial, and they didn't help him. But these individuals and these organizations were all very successful, but did not help him. He founded an organization, Infinity, that funded colleges to study Indiology. Indiology is the study of India. He funded a lot of researches, funded visiting professors, and a lot of conferences. And quickly, that moved into, and there was a shift in political shift happened where these people wanted not Indian studies, but South Asian studies. He fought this battle without any support from India, from the US, any supporters, no political supporters he couldn't find. This was 30 years ago. He coined that there was Hinduphobia 30 years ago. So I could go on and on, but without further ado, very proud to present a scholar by merit of 9 books and a non-Hindu, Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, defending plagiarism of Hindu culture and tradition. You don't need an introduction.
Jai Shri Ram.
So first I want to thank Nikunj. I think you're getting better and better as time goes by. Nikunj is one of the early persons in our journey in the 90s, I think. He was a student at Rutgers. And I was just beginning, going around giving these talks. Nobody willing to listen. In those years, the first 10 years, not only was there no positive support, Hindu temples would refuse to let me speak because it would be a controversy. So many people would say, okay, let's speak Chicago, LA, Chinmaya temple, Chinmaya mission here. And they would politely say, no, we pay and rent a school hall somewhere, something like that. They were embarrassed, our own people, because they had such a deep inferiority complex. They didn't want to stand up, and they themselves didn't have the wherewithal, the courage to stand up and speak. But not only that, they did not want someone else to do it, because by association they would be considered guilty. So we've come a long way, and it's thanks to people like Nikunj and various others. Now today, when I've written 13 books, ladies said 9, and I'm going to write another 20 in the next 5-6 years, without, because so many of them are almost done. so many of the books are like 95, 98% done, and trying to really perfect it. I just kept them, but now I'm going to crank them out. This year is our 30th anniversary, so we are celebrating lots of, in many different ways, and Nikunj is part of that. So we put out maybe 5 or 6 books this year, and one will be on different parts of our accomplishments, different journeys, different conferences, different frameworks and paradigms we've introduced. So we'll do a lot of that. Now, this book here, Varna Jati Caste, which each of you should have a copy of, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I've never actually read out from a book, but I will do that. Authors often like to do that. They like to read out passages from here and there to make you familiar. And the reason I'll do that is because since each of you has a copy, this will encourage you to go and read it in more detail. So I'm going to actually, this is about 8 chapters. I'm not going to read 120 pages right now, but I'll tell you a little bit about what's in each chapter. That way you will know where to go and get information. The purpose of writing this, it's called a primer on Indian social structures. Primer meaning it's very easy. A school kid should be able to read it. You should be able to dive into a particular chapter without having to read the whole book. It's written as a reference work. So if somebody wants to say, was there always caste abuse? Well, there is a particular place where you can get information on it. Did the British invent the caste system? As we currently know it, there is a place where there is information on it. Ambedkar, who is the founder of the Dalit movement in modern times, there are issues about his work and a chapter on that. So there are specifically isolated places where you can get information, and therefore it's designed to be a reference book. So I will give you a quick walkthrough. The context in which this was written is a large book called Snakes in the Ganga. This is a part of that. And the context is that there is all this woke, ultra-left stuff going on in Harvard, in media, in various places. DEI is a part of that. Critical race theory is a part of that. Cancel culture is a part of that. So in that context, we have been framed as oppressors using caste as the weapon against us. That's the context in which we are having to defend ourselves. Now, it explains, first of all, what is the Hindu metaphysics, so that you understand where Varna and Jati come from. We don't have caste, we have Varna and Jati. So it gives you a very simple, easy to read background on what is Varna, what is Jati. It explains that these are actually ways of preserving diversity. It's not against diversity, it is for diversity. Because rather than a homogeneous society, a society where different people have different talents and they all work together in one social ecosystem is a healthier society. So it explains the original purpose of having Varna as a very natural thing. You see, if you look at nature, you don't have homogeneity. You don't have all the trees same height or all the flowers same color. You don't have all the dogs the same kind of dogs. I mean, everything in nature has got so much diversity, diversity within diversity within diversity. You look at geography, it's diverse. You look at climate every day, every moment is changing. So that is sort of a principle of nature. And therefore it's reasonable that human beings also will have diversity. Now, I was sitting in one of these Ivy League type places where they were saying that the Indians doing very well in math and science and capturing a lot of seats in places like Harvard is because of elitism and oppressiveness and a kind of privileged background. So the equity means that equity is different from equality. Equality says everybody is equal, you compete, somebody will win, somebody will not win, but everybody gets equal chance. Equity is different. Equity says that's not good enough because Sandeep came from a privileged background, so he has better math. I won't have as good math, not my fault, because my heritage did not teach me that. I came coming from a poor place. Whatever the reason is, maybe his brain is better for math because he ate better food. I was not given that good food like that. So we must be given the same result, whether we deserve it or not. Whether we deserve it or not. So this means equity is a principle which is against meritocracy. That's a very serious plan. So I was having this discussion, and just to show you how shallow these people are, they run away when you put an argument. So they said we want equity so that all the intakes are as per race, as per race. If Indians have 2% of the race in America, then they should get 2% of the seats. 2% of the jobs in technology, 2% of doctors. Everybody should be in proportion. That's the argument of equity. That is really what DEI is ultimately going for. Ultimately they're going for. So I said, what about the fact that there's a room like this, 3 times as many people. I'm the only Indian. I'm taking my hands up. I always do this and I get in trouble. But I do it anyway. So I said, what about the fact that in sports, blacks are overrepresented? Blacks are overrepresented. And Indians are underrepresented. So I feel that blacks have oppressed me so that I cannot be doing well in basketball. I think that the rules are different. So for me, the basket should be lower because I'm shorter. And for the blacks, the basket should be higher. Just like exactly the argument they're giving for math. Exact argument they're giving for math. They want to handicap the Asians have to achieve more to get in, whereas somebody else has to achieve less. And they all stood there, nobody had an answer to this. I said, will you accept that the Olympic Games should give medals based on, we have 1/6 of the world is Indian, we should get 1/6 of the world medal. Whether we deserve or not, we should get it. The US Olympic team should be by race. In proportion to race, they should give how many people. All the football teams and basketball teams should downsize their blacks because there are too many. All these Oscars, there are too many blacks in the Oscars. Now this is very politically incorrect to talk about. But they had no answer. They really, all they can do is cancel, say, oh no, you must be Islamophobic or something like that. Some complete irrelevant thing. But they cannot argue that. The fact of the matter is, just like the physical body is not the same for everybody. Some are taller, some are shorter. Indians have a higher incident of coronary disease because the veins the arteries are narrow. That's just the way it is. There is more tendency for glucose problems, diabetes and so on. So we have certain biological advantages, certain biological disadvantages. All the different kinds of people have like that. So if all the organs of your body are different, somebody has stronger heart, somebody has weaker, somebody has stronger lungs, pancreas, whatever, then why wouldn't the same difference and diversity also apply to the brain? I mean, brain is also an organ. So if like the rest of our physical body is so diverse, it's reasonable that in the brain, the different centers of the brain, they do different things. Some people are going to be better in one function, some people are going to be better in another function. Some people may be good at singing, some may have better language skills, some may be better in math. So just like we take people who are better in one sport and push them there, and somebody who's better in music, push them there, why wouldn't you do the same thing with mental faculties? Why wouldn't you say that take those people who are good in math and let them go ahead? And we need rocket scientists. And somebody else who's got some other kind of skill can be better in that. Why is diversity being denied in the name of diversity? It's very strange. So what they are doing is, they are suppressing the diversity which is natural in order to maximize the diversity by skin color. So they want to allocate positions and professions and rewards in proportion to different races and skin colors, not realizing that this will be against meritocracy, which is a principle of nature. So, the arguments given in this book, there's so many like that you can read. And you will see that the principle of diversity in Hindu culture, in Vedic culture, is a far richer and philosophically more sound principle than this new kind of idea of diversity that they are peddling. So then I also have things very useful, I think, like tables. So here's a table on page 15, which is Vedic civilization, Western civilization. And it compares ideas, different ideas are compared. You can read all this later, but I want to give you a quick tour. Now, some common misunderstandings about the caste system that you need to know, explain here. One is that caste is equated with Varna Jati, which is incorrect. And it is considered, second point is, it is considered that caste, even as caste in the modern sense, is always abusive, which is not true, because we give you plenty of examples, plenty of counter-examples. Examples where Shudras have had kings and dynasties, where we've had very wealthy people from various Dalit communities, billionaires, there are Indian billionaires who are Dalits. And there are Indian Brahmins who are very poor people working in a temple, making hardly any, barely able to make ends meet. So it is not so universal as it is made out to be. Yes, there are problems, and we need to resolve those problems. But it is not like it is presented in this whole politicization. Also, the view that the Vedic heritage is inherently casteist. So if caste is abusive, inherently, that's not true even, but if caste is inherently abusive, and this caste is inseparable from Hinduism, then the conclusion is that Hinduism has to be dismantled. Because if you want to get rid of the abuse, you cannot change caste to make it non-abusive. And it is a part of Hinduism you cannot do without. So you have to get rid of Hinduism. So all this anti-caste does not stop there. The anti-caste leads to actually Hinduphobia. Hinduism is dangerous. There are people who say the word Hinduphobia is not appropriate because there is no phobia. But if there is caste phobia, Brahmin phobia, Vedas phobia, Gurus phobia, all these are dangerous people. They're dangerous. They're dangerous to the underclass, they're oppressed. If you are called oppressor, there has to be fear of you. The phobia is definitely there because the phobia means fear. So if somebody is branded and targeted as an oppressor, and on that basis he has to be banned, there have to be laws against him, the law has to go after him, well, obviously you are generating fear. The fact that we don't think it's legitimate is not the point. The point is that the people who are the political people, legal people, activists, scholars, media, they are into this. So that Hinduphobia is a real phenomenon. Our people should stop going around saying there is no such thing. Because we have Hindus going around saying there is no such thing. See, we have Hindus who are called me up and said there is no such thing. So then I say, okay, if there is no such thing, do you think there is caste phobia? They say, maybe, yeah. I say, okay. Then are they saying that this is inseparable from Hinduism? Yes. So that's Hinduphobia. All this Brahmin phobia, Sanskrit phobia is Hinduphobia. What else do you want? And this whole thing about now this Sri Ram temple, there are so many, like Time magazine has an article. I don't know if you've seen today, article on why it is wrong and it's all chauvinistic and dominant and abusive and so on. That is all Hinduphobia. So we do have a problem with our own people in denial. Now, as far as the misunderstandings of caste related to Varna Jati Caste, I would like you to read the chapter called Varna Jati Caste, that is this title. And then there is the next chapter is very interesting. It's called A Brief Social History. I decided to look at different phases of Indian history and examine what was the social structure. So I divided the Indian history to 7 phases. I won't give you all the details, but I'll tell you the 7 phases were that I have come up with. One is early Vedic. One is late Vedic and Itihasic. There are certain parts of the Rig Veda which are considered early Vedic, and then there are other Vedic things that were added later, and also the Itihas, that is the second phase. Then there is a Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra is not just Manusmriti, but there are dozens of Dharma Shastras written by different people over a period of hundreds of years, which are codifying what they consider describing social structures. And the Dharma Shastra, are many kinds of Dharma Shastra. There are some written in the north, south, here, there, at different periods. Some were written as advice to the kings. But one thing is very clear. The Dharma Shastras were not like the constitution of the country. It is not prescriptive. It is not enforced. It is like a think tank coming up with recommendations. It's more recommendations than actual law of the land. It is not like if in the Dharma Shastra it says this, then that is what the Hindus were like. That happened to be somebody's position. It's like a position paper. Some social scientists' position paper. That's what Dharma Shastra is. Manusmriti was never the law of any king in India until the British came, and the British started enacting, translating some of the Dharma Shastras and making them into the laws of the Hindus and things like that. But prior to that, the Dharma Shastras were never enforced as the laws in India. So you need to know these things. And then after that, the 4th phase is the Muslim phase. So we have early Vedic, late Vedic and Itihasic, Dharma Shastra. Then the Muslim phase. And Muslim phase disrupts social structure. So many things happen when people are finished off, when their house of worship is gone, their education system is gone. Many of people have been killed, many have been turned into slaves, they have jizya to pay, there is havoc. And you know what people do is they huddle together in the community and fight each other. When you deprive, if you take different rats in a cage and you deprive them of basic needs, they fight each other. This is true, you can do this experiment. So communities fighting each other as a result of this happens. There's jealousy, they bring each other down. So the Muslim phase created a lot of havoc in Indian social structure. Then there is European colonial rule, which codified, from Lord Risley onwards, they codified the caste system as a hierarchy. And I will come to it a little bit later, but British actually started out by saying that the Hindus don't believe in this caste hierarchy. The British themselves are saying, and we are quoting you. The British caste survey people who are doing a census, themselves writing officially, you can read those census reports, that a lot of places we go to, and we are trying to count how many people are this kind or that kind, and the people there don't believe that they are exploited and they're part of this or that hierarchy. They don't believe it. But we have to put them in that hierarchy. And then there is post-independence. Post-independence is another phase of Indian history. I'm listed as phase number 6. And that is the whole Nehruvian era, where Indians are trying to become like Europeans and all that stuff, secular, those things. And then there is the age of globalization, where in the name of globalization, a whole lot of things that were very local become, like evangelism becomes global and so on. And now I think we are entering the 8th phase, which is the phase of Sri Ram. The Sri Ram Chandra phase is the phase of history that we are entering. And when people ask me about the Indian grand narrative, because I've been talking about the Indian grand narrative, and they said, wasn't there a grand narrative? I tell them that at one point in time, Ramayana was our grand narrative. Ramayana was our grand narrative. In every village, not only in India but all over Asia, that was the grand narrative by which people saw who we are. That was our sense of identity in those days. So then I have a table where I look at all these 7 phases of history and I explain what was the key character, was there hierarchy, was it birth-based, were there competing economic interests, was there communal hostility, was there untouchability, and so on. So you have a very easy way of understanding at what point the problem starts. And then you can zoom in to those pages and get the references that you will need in your argument. This can be used for school kids writing articles, could be used by you to debate in your community, or go to an interview with some media and talk to them and give them this information. So that is how the thing has been organized. Now, if you look at caste and Buddhism, because the reason I picked Buddhism is Ambedkar, one said he's a Buddhist, but one of the points I make is he didn't believe in Buddhism as per the Buddha. He believed in Buddhism as per himself, which is not Buddhism, that is more Ambedkarism. But if you look at the actual Buddhism, you can't say that they were without Jati Caste, Jati Varna, because they were. There are a lot of Buddhist texts where they are openly Kshatriya or openly something or other, but they are not free from these kind of identities. And then there is a whole lot of, we have evidence here on Muslim caste in India. The Muslim caste actually, a famous author, Cambridge University Press, either that or it was Oxford University Press, I think, wrote this, a Muslim, on the Muslim caste of India. And he was just totally cancelled. But so much data on how the upper caste Muslims are the ones getting all quotas and whenever they give all this Farooq Abdullah and this Shabana Azmi, her husband, all these people, they are all upper caste Muslims. And they are the ones who are going around fighting for Islam and all that stuff. But the lower echelon of Muslims don't get any of that benefit. It's all these guys, the elitist Muslims, they are. And so there are lawsuits from Dalit Muslims against Islamic organizations in India, saying that there is caste discrimination against us. This is Muslims. So these are things that we have to bring out. These are things we have to bring out. See, they are smart enough, they can find one person and convince him to go file a lawsuit and get so much mileage out of it. Why aren't we able to find such examples and have them file a lawsuit? There are Dalit Christians. In fact, in many cemeteries in India, they won't allow a Dalit to be buried along with the Brahmins. Christians, all of them are Christians. And there is an official petition by the Christians in India, by the church in India, to the courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court, to recognize caste within Christianity and give them quotas. So it's an official position of this. So if you are wanting legal recognition that there is caste in order to get the quotas and the benefits, then on the other side you cannot go on claiming we don't have a caste system. And this is true in the Sikhs also. I mean, the Jat, the whole Khalistan problem is a Jat. The people who are behind the Khalistan movement are Jats. And they have so much, they call it Jat. Jat is the Jati, They are so Jat conscious, these people. Sikhs will tell you that. You talk to any Sikh, they'll say that our text says there should not be any caste discrimination, but in practice there is. In practice there is. So it's not what the book says, it's what the practice is. So then if you look at, we have a whole section on untouchability. Now you may think that what you've been told is that untouchability is there in India forever. But I'm telling you, and I prove it here, that until 1918, the term untouchability was not used. The term here, the term in the 1800s, which the Christians are using, the British are using, is something like deprived classes. They are people who are deprived, economically deprived. It is not anything else, but they are just poor people. And this goes on, and then what happens is the Maharaja of Baroda, Gaikwad, he is the first one. He is the first one who uses untouchableness, something like that, as a term. In his correspondence, he was corresponding with the British. He's very nationalistic and all, fine. But in his correspondence, he puts that in. And that doesn't catch on. And then, it doesn't catch on right away. But then there is a 1918 event, some event about the underprivileged classes of people in India. And they put out a pamphlet in which they use the word untouchables. And that is like 100 years ago. That's it. That's when and I show you all this, that until then that was not considered, they were not considered untouchable per se. So if you ask me, okay, then why is it that they're not allowed to touch this, or they're not allowed to go here, even if the word untouchable wasn't there, but in practice, there is this taboo. So let me explain to you what it is. The restrictions were on, the modern term would be hygiene. It's a hygiene system that says somebody who's cutting meat is not hygienically qualified to touch the deity. Somebody who is into leather, or somebody who's done this or that kind of a thing, that is it's a system of pollution, sort of like your actions and your profession kind of contaminate you in a way that you are not going to be, it's not going to be good for you to go and do something else which requires a certain level of cleanliness. So it's a system of hygiene, and it is not originally by birth, it is by your profession. So you have many examples where parents may have been not hygienic and therefore not allowed to do certain things, but I'm able to fight and I'm able to do it. So it's more a system of hygiene. And I think the modern equivalent would be like, somebody has COVID and he's not supposed to do surgery. I mean, it's not untouchability, but I guess you could call it that he's an untouchable. He's a surgeon, now he's got COVID, he's not allowed to come and do surgery. Somebody who got radioactivity in a nuclear accident, he got radioactivity, then he has to be quarantined. So any system of quarantine on grounds of hygiene, on grounds of safety. So the Vedic system placed a lot of value on rituals. And these rituals required certain cleanliness, certain hygiene, certain protocols. And certain people had to be qualified to do that. So whether you take your shoes off, whether it is you wear dhoti to come, whether it is you have to have a shower and come, whatever the rules are, those are part of the prerequisites to make you capable of performing that ritual. Otherwise you are bringing some kind of a pollutant. It's more like that. It's not that you are untouchable and I can't sit and eat with you and those kind of things. That prejudice comes later. So you must understand what later becomes untouchability, or rather in recent centuries becomes untouchability, starts out as kind of protocols and procedures and restrictions of a very high standard of hygiene to perform rituals. So if certain people are not eligible to perform rituals because they're not Brahmins. Brahmins are the ones who've been sanctioned, they've been certified, they've gotten through the training and they become this. It's not necessarily that your parents were Brahmin, you are Brahmin. Today everybody is saying my dad was Brahmin, I'm Brahmin, but most of them are violating the rules of Brahmins. It wasn't like that. You have to live a certain life to be a Brahmin. So if you look at the restrictions on each of the Varnas, the maximum restrictions are on the Brahmins. The restriction that the Shudras will not go and do ritual, okay, but he can go and have a life, good life, he can go drinking. Brahmin can't drink. He can go and do all kind of lifestyle, modern, according to the modern American lifestyle, the Dalit, the restrictions on the Brahmins are pretty oppressive. They will be oppressed. The Brahmins are being oppressed by the restrictions on them. And the same restrictions do not apply to the Shudras. The Shudras can live a more American lifestyle than the Brahmins can if you are true to the tradition. The Brahmins can't accumulate wealth. Which means all this Sundar Pichai and all these guys are not Brahmins. Because they're all making money. The Brahmins cannot have political power which is meant for Kshatriyas. So you cannot run for office, you cannot be a politician, you cannot be a court judge. You know, the British, in order to populate the civil service with Indians, because they could not get enough Gora people coming from England to run the entire civil service, they needed a lot of brown people. They found that this required people who have book knowledge, who are good at learning and memorizing. And they found that these Brahmins were like that. So in the 1800s, it was decided, it was a policy debated in the British Parliament, decided that we should encourage Brahmins to become bureaucrats. And they'll make good bureaucrats because they follow the rules, they know how to memorize, they know they are rigid, they have rigor. So they have all these kind of disciplines, and now we will turn the British law into the new equivalent of the Vedas, the new Shastras, and the royal family and the viceroy and all those, the royal rulers and the governor general as the new devatas, substitute that, raise a new generation of these people and turn them into bureaucrats and get rid of Sanskrit and teach them English, teach them British history, teach them all that stuff. And that Macaulay project turned out to be phenomenal for them. Within 1 or 2 generations, they turned the whole civil service from Goras, who they couldn't get enough of them, to Brahmins. Brahmins became the IAS officer. In those days, ICS officers, then IAS officers. But that is not a Brahmin's job. Brahmin is not supposed to be a bureaucrat, administrator. That is a Kshatriya's job. So the idea of, and then getting into accounting, these kind of fields, knowledge, kind of fields, getting Brahmins into it, is not what the Brahmin restrictions allow. So, you can't be half-baked and can't say, okay, we'll accept all that as Brahmin, okay, and we'll overlook that. And yet, when there's a problem against some person, we will say it's the Brahmin doing it to the Shudra. Because the real fact is that that guy is neither a Brahmin in the true sense, and this guy is not a Shudra in the true sense. So, the Varna separation and the Varna definition, there are a couple of points I'm making. First point I'm making that the restrictions were there on every single Varna, not just against Shudras. And the restrictions on Shudras are probably the easiest because they are not allowed to do certain things which are ritualistic. But they have more freedom on personal lifestyle. The huge number of restrictions on Brahmins, what they are not allowed to do, including political power, not serve in the military, not serve in the judiciary, and certainly not accumulate money. So, and similarly the Vaishya, who got the money, the trading, the business community, the industrialists, are not allowed to do this. They're not supposed to go bribe somebody and get into Rajya Sabha. That is not what a Vaishya is supposed to do. See, and they're not supposed to run for politics or become a scholar or something like that. So, first point I'm making is that in modern times, there's hardly anybody who is living true to a particular Varna. Second, the restrictions on these Varnas were not oppressive against Dalits per se. There were different restrictions for different people, and you could argue that maybe the Brahmins are the toughest ones because they're not allowed to make money, have power, all that stuff. And then third is that this business of birth-based was also not there. So when you look at all the misinformation that you are getting, you should be able to take some of the facts given here, because whatever I'm telling you is backed by references. I also have a whole chapter here looking at British records, which say that they have censuses saying how many people of various communities are in schools. And here they're showing the majority of students in many schools were Shudras. Fewer Brahmins, more Shudras. So it's not that they were not being educated, they were being educated. So this business that the education was discriminating against them is also not true, because this is as per their own records. These are all, I'm quoting here and giving you all the references where you can go and find out in Madras Presidency and in Bengal and here and there, all these different examples are given. And then you have things like there are abuses throughout, and then there is reform from within, and then after a while there is some more shake-up, and society keeps going through polarization where camps develop and they or try to hold on to power or privilege over other people, and it's not based on the same thing as Varna Jati, it's just opportunism. So if you are a Patel, I remember that 25-30 years ago, a relative of mine who was Gujarati, her brother came from India, and he was sitting here and he was very relaxed. I said, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know, I'll just go get a motel. I said, how do you get a motel? You don't have any money. He said, no, we have a system. I just go and they'll give me the money, they'll tell me this is the motel, I'll own the motel, they'll teach me everything. So I could say that's a privilege I don't have. That is true. But the Patels are listed as OBCs, other backward caste. So it has nothing to do with the Vedic hierarchy. I mean, that's a community that worked very hard. They looked after each other. And it's like Koreans own most of the laundromats. It's not like there's a laundromat caste system or something in the United States. Not that the United States said this is a Korean caste job. It's just that they did that. I mean, most of the Indian-owned gas stations are Sikhs. There is no Sikh caste system that says, gas station belongs to Sikhs, but that's how it turned out. So communities have always had this tendency to look after each other. It's just opportunism. Now if tomorrow AI, artificial intelligence, wipes out the programming jobs, then all these tech people will become low caste. They'll become unemployed. And you'll suddenly have, when I used to say this 15, 20 years ago, they didn't believe it. Today they at least believe it. That AI is possible, maybe. We did 14 volumes we published on the history of Indian science and technology, Infinity Foundation. And one of the things I always wanted these guys to look at is a particular community that were doing something like metallurgy or civil engineering. What were they as per today's caste? How would they be classified? And one of the examples we found is zinc. Zinc is a metal. And the distillation of zinc was first done in India. This is recognized by there is a European Association of Metallurgists, and they recognized this and they went to this place in Rajasthan. We did all this research and all, and they put a huge plaque saying that this is the world's first place known where zinc was successfully distilled. And 400 or 500 years before Europeans could distill it. This was considered a very big breakthrough in metallurgy, because if you can distill a metal, means you've turned the solid into gas, and then condensed it again into pure. Now you have, without any impurities, you have that substance pure. And so you can make formulas, mixing alloys with perfection, absolute precise perfection. So this distillation of zinc was such a huge product that India had a monopoly on exporting zinc. And so they've done all this research on how much money they're making. Some of these villages and these communities, they were making tons of money because there was a huge demand for this purified zinc, because you could make different kinds of bronze and whatnot. So when you look at their so-called caste as per today, they're all today's Shudras. These guys were were artisans, and this was a technology that they developed through their trial and error experimentation. This is all written. We have a whole history of zinc metallurgy, and you will see all the references there. So some of these, in those days, those were like IT workers today. The zinc metallurgists were like today's IT workers. This is before the Industrial Revolution, when they replaced all this with the mechanization of metallurgy. Before the metallurgy of zinc became mechanized and put these people out of business, they were for several centuries very rich people, because they had a certain product, and that product was very expensive in the market, and they had a monopoly on it, and they were very rich. So that rise of that community and the fall of that community was part of the economics. I mean, if petroleum becomes $5 a barrel of oil, then the jati of Arabs will become back to the camels. They'll go back riding camels and all that stuff. Because, that product made them rich. So similarly today, I'll tell you, if the AI wipes out the programming and software and all this kind of thing, large number, millions and millions of, tens of millions of Indians will be considered underprivileged and things like that. So the point I'm making here is that the mobility is not fixed and frozen as per your designation in the Vedic sense. It's a free market where people are moving up and moving down, and they're enterprising, and they make a community and they go after market share from other communities. That's life. That's how it is. So then there is this whole business about how the British. It's very interesting when the British came and they wanted to. 250 years after they arrived, because they arrived in the year 1600. The East India Company was made in the year 1600. And that's before the British landed in America. Before the Pilgrims came to America, they had made the East India Company. So they were going in both directions. So when they, 250 years after that, Lord Risley comes and he starts this census business. And his person, Professor Simon Charsley, anthropologist at the University of Glasgow, explains how they struggled to make all the Indians fit into their idea of caste. And they are saying that it is very difficult to identify who is who, which caste he belongs to, and where that caste is. And sometimes a delegation would come from a certain community, a certain caste community, saying that we don't belong in this, please, we belong to that. And so they would make a petition, and they write a complaint that you are misclassifying us. All this went on for a long time. And then there's another Cambridge anthropologist who says, until well into the colonial period, much of the subcontinent was still populated by people for whom the formal distinctions of caste were of only limited importance, even in parts of the so-called Hindu heartland. The institutions and beliefs which are now often described as the elements of traditional caste were only just taking shape as recently as the 18th century under British influence. This is very important. So then, you see I have quoted all these kind of people. So it is very useful for you. You can pull all this stuff out of it. And then it is this Gaikwad, Maharaja of Baroda, who then uses the term depressed classes, that the British were calling them depressed classes, people, whoever is below a poverty line. And then they are the ones who gradually, somebody introduced the term untouchableness, and he liked that. And so the first use in Britain was this anti-untouchability manifesto that came out in 1918 by the Indian side, not the British side. So we accepted this, we accepted that this untouchability, and that's how we started this problem. So that's the whole social engineering done by our own people. I mean the British people, but our elites collaborated. So I want to talk about Ambedkar. I think this is an important thing. Ambedkar wrote 4 important books, and I've analyzed each of them. Imagine taking hundreds of pages of a book, very heavy-duty book, and taking all his 4 books and summarizing it in 20 pages. That's a lot of work. I mean, I've done this helping you guys. I'm told I'm writing heavy, large books, not easy to read, but I'm reading, condensing it 100 to 1 in terms of 100 pages are put into one. So if a book has got 800 pages, you can imagine how many thousands of pages I had to read to do that. And you can see from the references and the bibliography, there's a lot of material there. So I'll tell you what are the 4 important books. So you'll have a basic talking knowledge about Ambedkar when you talk about Ambedkar. So the first book is against the caste system, and he rejects Hinduism as a casteist. Now this is also very interesting, because he, even after rejecting, he says that to build a new social structure, the Hindus don't need to go outside to Islam or Christianity. It's very clear. Because the Upanishads contain the answers. So he's saying that you guys got it wrong because of Dharma Shastras, but you guys can get it right with your own Upanishads. So that's a very interesting nuance. You have to, he says your problem is, you have a problem, but you also got a solution. He was very clear. He did not want the Hindus to go and become Christians or Muslims. He's very clear. And then the other, and another important point that I make is, part of his reason for being very upset had to do with Gandhi. I don't know how many of you know this, but he had a big fight with Gandhi. There was a Hindu gathering. Gandhi was the leader, and they were going to talk about how to upgrade the social groups that were not doing well, underprivileged, and they wanted him as a person fighting for those people to come and give the keynote address. Something very strange happened, which is unfortunate. I wish it hadn't happened. They told him not to criticize. You know, I face this also. So you go to some RSS meeting, they say, don't talk criticism. I want to talk criticism. What's wrong? You know, I'm not against anybody. This is my style. I like to be critical. So he's an intellectual. He just come back from Columbia University. He got his PhD under John Dewey, famous guy. You know, he's a smart guy. He's an intellectual. You can't go to a guy like that and tell him that you can't criticize Hindus. So this is the note that he was given, and according to this account. And they wanted him to see his notes, his talk before him. And that's an insult. I mean, I've turned down if they ever say we want to see your keynote address before we let you speak. I'd say, go ahead. So he was very ticked off. He refused to go, and he published his speech, but made it tougher than it could have been. And that speech is that is the speech where he rejects Hinduism wholeheartedly. Until then he was against it, he was criticizing it, he was also, he was just a critic of things in general. But that showdown with Gandhi. Then Gandhi wrote a rebuttal to his speech and published it in one of the magazines that Gandhi was running. And then Ambedkar wrote a rebuttal to that rebuttal. So that's how the war started, in between these two guys. So this is an important point that you should know. Not that he was accepting Hindu Dharma, he was not. But he was also a critic of Islam. If you look at, there's a second book on Islam. He writes about the partition of Pakistan and why it's happening, what's wrong with Islam. And he blames Islam for everything. If you remove the name Ambedkar from his writings and just publish, they'll ban you, they'll prosecute you, they'll sue you for being Islamophobic. He was an Islamophobic. I mean, I've given passages, 50, 60 passages of Ambedkar to a lot of scholars and said, what do you think of this? They say, oh my, this guy, and they get really angry. I tell them that this is Ambedkar. And they find it hard to believe. But you should know these things. And you should have such verses in your hip pocket so that you should have it in your phone. Say, okay, this one, what do you think, who wrote this? And they will not believe that this is Ambedkar. He was also against Christianity. He felt that Indians, the lower caste, he coined the term Dalit for them, and he said that they should not either convert to Islam or to Christianity. Very interesting. He also had a big fight with communism. That's the third book of his. He wrote a book where he compared Buddhism with communism. And he says that communism is inherently violent, whatnot, and whatnot. So today's woke people who are bringing Dalits in as sort of the fighters on their side, they are bringing together the leftist, communist Marxists and the Islamic people, the Dalits, all the people who are angry, bringing them together. You need to go to them and tell them that Ambedkar, the father of this whole Dalit movement, rejected communism and rejected Islam. I mean, if you were to, you really need to know how to play them one against the other. We Hindus don't do that, but you have to learn how to do that. It takes some courage, it takes some risk, but you have to learn how to do that. You should be able to go to a woke gathering and tell them that I'm going to read out from Ambedkar, and those of you who think he's Islamophobic, please go protest against him. And now read out what he said about communism. These are things that our people should know about. Now I'll tell you the fourth one, which is his book on Buddhism. Now, it's very interesting, it's mixed up. He rejects the most essential parts of Buddhism. He rejects reincarnation, imagine. He rejects karma theory, okay? And he does not believe in meditation, okay? And he does not believe in the nirvana as a higher state. He wants to reinvent Buddhism as a social doctrine, only social doctrine, nothing spiritual, only social activism. But by the time he's done changing Buddhism for his social crusade, or a social, that's the wrong word, but the social campaign, it's hardly recognizable as Buddhism. It's just called Buddhism. In fact, if you take his text and go and show it to the Dalai Lama's people or any Buddhist organization, they'll say this is not Buddhism. So that's another way when you want to debate Suraj Yengde. You have to tell him that you call yourself a Buddhist. He says he's Ambedkar 2.0. He calls himself Ambedkar 2.0. And but he doesn't know what I'm thinking. There's a video where he goes to a Vietnamese monk, and he's interviewing the Vietnamese monk, wanting the monk to support him as a Buddhist against Hindus. Hindus destroyed all the Buddhist monasteries, didn't they? And the guy says, I don't know, I never heard of it. And so he's telling him all these things. And then the monk starts asking him questions like, what do you have? Do you meditate? He says, no, I tried it, it didn't work for me, it's all, he kind of makes disparaging remarks about meditation. And this Buddhist monk is a polite guy, he didn't want to, but he makes it very clear that this guy is a fraud. He doesn't even. So there is a lot of, by the way, before I forget, Harvard invited me. They have an India forum, something like that, and it's coming up next month. They invited me, and I'm supposed to debate Suraj Yengde. And video channel guys, one of these TV channel guys in California is the moderator.
Ravi Kapoor.
Moderator, yeah. But then I got an email saying that Suraj Yengde doesn't want to come unless he's given some certain amount of funding. So I said, well, you guys give him funding. Harvard got enough money. Give him funding, whatever. Why? So, but then they said, no, he's rejected. He's not coming anyway. So they said, we want you there. So they gave me some bunch of names. So I took the Ajanta Subramaniam. I said, Ajanta Subramaniam, she's your professor. So they said, we'll get back to you. I have this all email thread. Don't put this up because I don't want them to, let's see where it goes before we make it public because it's all private email. So far it's private email. Let's see, maybe it'll work. So then I got an email reply saying that Professor Subramaniam has also declined. She doesn't want. So they want to bring some real radical type from India who don't know, and I told them that I want to discuss the caste system claims in the United States. Okay, because I don't want that by extrapolation they'll bring in all kind of people who are having problem here and there, and then they'll say, okay, we brought it to America. I want, if you're talking about caste system in America, I want USA people. So then I said, why don't you bring in Cornel West? I want Cornel West. I want this Wilkerson. I want Wilkerson. Neither of those two are interested. So where it stands right now, time is running out. I am interested, I am open. But I only debate a well-known scholar, not some guy who's nobody, because then I don't want to face somebody like that. He has got nothing to do, he'll keep shouting, screaming. I want somebody of stature, somebody I have addressed, somebody I have written about, and I have written about these kind of people, and I want them, and they are not willing to come. So that's so much. When I mentioned Suraj Yengde, I thought I'd tell you that. Let's see what will happen. So this is. I've just given you my views on it. Now, the biggest problem in the area of caste system, if you were to think of caste as groups of privileges that stick together, help each other, and others are underprivileged. I think the biggest problem today, which is of this kind, is not even being recognized. I've written about it for a while, and I call it the digital caste system. The digital caste system. This is the caste system being enforced by digital media and AI. This is a system of people who are in control of our thinking through the AI as a censoring mechanism, as a filtering mechanism, as a watchdog, as a policeman, as somebody who will rate, what is your rating as per your DEI performance, as an individual, as an organization, as an institution, as anything. What is your rating in terms of how ESG friendly you are? the values of certain people, certain elite people, are being used to train these algorithms to go and review all the posts you ever made in your life, all the pictures. So if Mukesh Ambani is seen shaking hands with mostly upper caste people and hardly ever a lower caste person, his caste rating go down because this AI face recognition system will say that out of so many people he shook hands with and so many events he attended, wedding events and so on, it was a disproportionately low representation of low caste people that he hugged and shook hand and all that stuff. And that will be, that this is automatic AI system rating that will just come out like that. This is where the world is going. And you may think that this is all far-fetched, but you know, India has picked up DEI like nobody else. In India, there is this organization in the US called SHRM. They do this HR training. And if you know anybody who is into HR, I have one of my relatives, kids is HR person, and she tells me that, you know, to get ahead in HR, you need to get certified, keep taking their courses and get certified, and there is considered good. And at a certain level, they're indoctrinating you with this whole DEI thing. And what they are doing is creating an entire sleeper cell network of DEI trained people with their ideology. They're putting them in governments, in universities, in industry, everywhere they're putting them. And these people are all like one alumni, they all know each other, they read the same books, they watch the same training videos, and they can be activated very quickly. So once this caste thing happens, they feel, once this caste thing happens, it becomes like legal. This will be activated so fast. Through this DEI mechanism, this will be activated so fast. You may suddenly find that basic things that you were entitled to, you took for granted are no longer available. No longer available. And I don't want to disclose certain very personal things, but I have, for the last 2 years, been the subject of serious attack that affects my personal life, with no due process available, from organizations, not one. First one I thought maybe some biased person trying to dump on me, but 2 of them now, exceedingly big name organizations, very powerful, which can actually have a huge harmful effect on me. And the reason I don't want to share it is not only because it's embarrassing, but actually it will make it worse because it will actually give the idea to many others to do this, to attack on this basis. And nobody's going to help me. Nobody's going to help me. If I were to say, okay, now here's my problem, you all help me emotionally, give me some samosa, help me and all this stuff. But nobody's going to help me. I'm on my own. So since I'm on my own, I know that by complaining, I'll only make it worse. But I shared this with somebody, and he told me that he is having a similar problem. So these problems are happening. These problems are happening, so I'm also learning how to combat it for myself, because I need to do that. The situation is coming where, the law may not work for you. The law may not work for you because there are different standards of law. The laws are being applied against certain people for trivial matters. I mean, this is happening in the political world also. Out of context, never been applied like that in that situation. And others are getting a free pass. Juries, very highly, New Jersey is one of those places where I hope none of you get into a situation where you're defending yourself in front of a jury, but it may not be that friendly towards Hindus because the basic premise is that you are basically racist people. And that stigma of being racist, we are not as lucky as the Jews. The Jews are in bad shape, but they got people like Bill Ackman, who will fight back, and 100 other people. I know a lot of Jews, and they have enough people who go fight back to the hell with you. We don't have that. You're on your own. If the same thing happened, if tomorrow, let's say the same thing that's happened to the Jews were happening to Hindus. Let's say some Muslim group, just like Hamas, but some Muslim group in India attacks some big Hindu thing. And they capture, they torture, they do all kind of bad things. And so there is a retaliation. Like the Israeli army, there is a retaliation against this guy. It will also become an international event. There will be marches in downtown downtowns, in front of all kind of state houses and in campuses. But the difference will be that unlike the Jews fighting back, there will be nobody from our side wanting to fight back. We'll have this business that, oh, I'm looking after myself. Mandirs will say, no, I don't want controversy. That's true. One of the most famous and wealthiest Hindu temples, and all of you know, but I won't name, invited me in England when I was there. Fantastic hosts in a gathering like this, fantastic discussions. They said, we need to pick your brain, we're having all these problems, these all, attacks on us, this, that, whatever. I did all that, very lively Q&A. The moment that video came up, and he knows, I got this thing saying, no, turn it down, turn it off. We don't want, it is part private, we can't let anybody. I said, come on, this should go out so that many more Hindus get the idea how to fight back. They said, no, because we got some information that from some government or whatever, that we'll become a bigger target. We'll become a bigger target. So this business that we're suffering, but we better not complain. Because if you complain, it's going to get even worse for you. And then there is this Scotland. Scotland is pretty bad shape. Scotland is a very bad shape for Hindus right now. They created the government created an official interfaith kind of council where there's a member of every religion, and the lady who is representing Hinduism was asked to resign because she invited Subramanian Swami to give a talk. She's asked to resign. So she can't even decide which speaker of her religion she can invite. I'm not saying Subramanian Swami is a good guy, there's plenty of problems with him, controversial, whatever. That is his life. There is nothing to do with it, and whatever he's doing I don't agree with. But from the point of view of the Hindu community deciding who to invite is their business. Nobody tells a Muslim person which imam to invite and which imam not to invite. Nobody tells a Christian, nobody tells anybody else who their speakers are. So just for inviting a person they didn't agree with, she has to resign from being the representative of Hindus. So now they are going to decide who will speak for you. They will decide, they will appoint who your Hindu leader is. Now that's pretty bad. So now this person comes to me and says, now I need all your help, this, that, but don't tell anybody, don't record, And I gave so many workshops off camera because I was told that we are afraid of things getting even worse. So things are not that great for us. And all you guys, now let me just, because what time is it now?
Almost 4.
Oh, okay, so I'll finish off, but I just want to say this. I would like each of you to do this, something with this, something more than just sit and listen. Each of you should either write a piece, whether it's 5 pages or 20 pages, doesn't matter, but some piece on any one issue that you pick up from here, any one issue, just grab through it and give your thoughts on it, give your reflections on it, and try to post it online, try to post it in a newspaper, try to give a talk in a school, but do something with it. I would really like each of you to take any topic of this, on any aspect, could be historical, could be current, could be giving a rebuttal on this issue or that issue, but something that you use from here, even if it's just 5 pages worth. So I would like each of you to do that. Second idea is do something practical. First one is something theoretical, so your ideas crystallize and you become more solid. The second idea is practical, meaning that I want you to either go get into a petition of some kind, and Nikunj has plenty of important things like that, or go to an organization, go to school, if your kids go to school and say, I'd like to talk about Hindu Dharma and refute some common Hindu-phobic views, or go to a local radio station, or do something. In other words, get out of your comfort zone. Stick your neck out. Stick your neck out. We need more people. Now it's so encouraging after 30 years of doing this. I find that at least 100 people can gather and talk openly. That's very good. But we need people to get out of the comfort zone of like-minded people, get out into the mainstream where they may not even agree with you, and learn how to hit back, how to fight back, how to argue your point. That's what I would really like. So this year, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary of the Infinity Foundation. And Nikunj is part of our thinking, and we have a very glad Ravinder Singh ji he's on the trustees of our foundation. So we are going to do several events, and we'll keep in touch with you guys. So thank you very much for listening, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Rajiv. There's so much more in that book than what you have just written. There's so much more information, and I think it's really, really powerful. What I want to do now is ask some questions. People have any questions? It should be a question, not a comment. I would love to see people talk about comments, but we can go on and on. But please go ahead and ask a question. So I'll come and give you the mic. Maybe come up this way, so I don't have to run around all the room. And please give your name.
Sure. I'm Subramanian Vasudevan. I go by Vasu. Thank you very much for this wonderful book. I will make a short comment if you don't mind. Maybe 20 years ago, I tried to clarify what Varna and Jati were in Wikipedia, and it was seconds before it was taken down, and changing those, entrenched perceptions turned out ultimately to be impossible. I hope your book has a different outcome. Just one question I have is, in terms of caste, Jati, Varna, whatever, do you think we should have an affirmative defense, which is to say, this is something that is needed given the diversity of India and it's worked for India? Or should we say that India has passed it and it doesn't really matter to us anymore, so don't use that as a point of criticism of our society?
So I would say we should keep here the debate to the United States. We are on more solid ground. There is no empirical evidence of Indian employers discriminating on caste grounds. I don't know of any such thing. Whether it's Cisco or Google or Microsoft, where there are thousands of people, Indians, I don't think that you can say that they are caste discriminating. If you stick to this, then you can say, you're all Hindus, practicing Hindus, but we don't see the problem, so how can you couple it as a Hindu problem? I think that's the way to argue.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi, sir. My name is Amish. So my question is, like you have very correctly said, we are not born out of any particular caste. We don't associate with the caste as we were born many years ago, like 200, 300 years ago. We would be called Brahmin or Shudra or something. Whatever you do is your caste. So now in the current context also, does it make sense to start associating ourselves with our job? Let's say if somebody asks, so for Hindus, let's say we should educate people and tell them, like, I'm an engineer and also I teach yoga and meditation and things like that. So in one part of me is one caste, which is an engineer, and that could be called one kind of caste, and the other thing which I am doing on that is yoga and others could be called something else. So we ourselves could portray ourselves and tell it to people to educate them in a good way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. In fact, I say that to people that now we are doing many varnas at the same time.
Yeah.
When I debate, when I write workbooks, I'm a Brahmin. When I go and fight some people, in some activist session, the scholar is a Brahmin, the activist is a Kshatriya.
Correct.
That's the difference between scholar and activist. When I'm making money, right now I'm not making money, but I'm investing at least so I can pay my bills. In that capacity, or when I'm doing, funding work and all that, then I'm a Vaishya, right? When I'm vacuuming the place or taking my car for a wash or doing the laundry, I'm a Shudra. So I'm doing everything the same day.
Correct.
So that's how life is today.
So I think that's what I'm saying. So we should publicize this thing and make it
Yeah.
very common for
Yes.
everyone to understand. And even this book would serve as a basis, and
Yeah.
everyone should use
Absolutely.
it as a basis.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Hello everyone, myself Venkatnath. I'm author of, I'm a historian and writer too. So I'm author of this book, Lokamaanya Tilak's Historic Speeches. So as of today's topic, so more than a question, this is a detailed clarification. So, as a point that you made earlier about Shudra Varna being more in Indian schools, pre-independent era. So, of course, fortunately I come from this district, Ballari, where this education survey was first carried out. And then I have this data, so in which, in my hometown, there were like about 503 schools, pre-independent era. We had 3,000 about Shudra Varna people in the schools, and then about 1,000 who belong to Brahmin Varna. So this is the data that I have from the original survey that was carried out. We have all these evidences, we have all this data. But my question is, how do we put this whole evidence and data into a legal framework here to fight bills like SB 403 and things like that? So this is all the evidence that can have a very valid point in the legal framework of the system.
This data is from India.
So this data, yeah, from the survey that was originally carried out by...
So, but I don't think that would be relevant in this country.
Because that's still a data that shows us how non-discriminative we were.
So that should be published. You should put it out in a newspaper, or you should put an article. Write an article and put it out in some place, publish it, so other people can reference it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Namaste Rajiv. It's always enlightening. My name is Sandeep Somani. So limiting our scope to US and Western world, I'm very surprised that caste here has gone so far with SB 403, Cisco case, and all of that. Because how do you define someone's caste over here? So that is a very, I thought that should disqualify any case, anything. Like an American Hindu, what's his caste?
Right.
White Hindu, what's his caste?
Right.
This doesn't make sense. And so,
Also the Hindus who came from the Caribbean,
yes,
they have no idea of caste.
right. So still it has something and we have
Which
to
shows
fight
the
it.
power of politics,
Yeah.
activism, all this wokeism, how powerful it is.
It's ideology at the end of the day. Yes, Rakesh.
Namaste Rajiv, it's good to hear you. I was sitting in a meeting organized by the AJC in the interfaith thing during the Thanksgiving period, and I was sitting, we were in group. I was sitting next to a Jew, and I was trying to explain to him about the qualities that we Hindus have as full of fraternity and friendship and oneness. And then he, after listening to all this, he just turned around and said, well, you have all these castes, and too many castes, and this and that. How would you respond to an abrupt question like that?
So you have to do it through experience, like I did. I mean, the more experience you get encountering people outside your community, because Hindus are sitting and talking to only Hindus. That's the problem. One of the things I did 30 years ago is get out of the shell and engage other people. Then you learn through experience how to combat. You only learn Kshatriyata in the Kurukshetra. You learn in the battle. So you have to, I'm glad to face this. Because make you understand, wait, what is this going on? So you have to learn how to respond.
I did tell him, I said, I'm Hindu and I really have no caste. I want to tell you. And I said, discrimination of caste, even in India, is illegal according to the Prevention of Atrocities Act passed by the Parliament in 1983. And I sort of calmed him down. He was not convinced. But I have his name and number, I'm going to send him this book.
Yeah, and you should tell him, listen, I can give you 100 different things people say about Jews. But you will tell me that we should learn about Jews from Jews, not from hearsay. So same way, you should learn about Hinduism from our authorities, our experts. And I'll give you a book. Rather than from hearsay, what this guy said, what that guy said, that's all nonsense. You should talk back like that.
I did tell him that amongst the Jews, Goans are the best, are better than the most, and the Ashrafs and the Afzals in the Islamic religion. I don't think he was convinced, but I gave him enough material. But I think we need to open up more, like you said. So, but This is the problem I faced. And it was an abrupt question and I was shocked.
You should get a whole lot of copies of this and give it to the AJC people. Just send it out, bulk. Say, read it. And if they invite you to give a seminar, come there. If you organize it.
Thank you. Hello, Rajiv ji. Hello, Rajiv ji. I have a question. What is your opinion about Manusmriti?
Okay. So Manusmriti is one of the Dharma Shastras, one of many Dharma Shastras. It is not a legal document in the sense that a Kshatriya, a king, said, this is my constitution and this is the law I will enforce. It's not. So it's not of legal authority. It is a scholar. Manu was a great scholar. And Manu says himself, this is descriptive and not prescriptive. Meaning I'm describing how the jatis behave. And what ought to be done depends on the context, depends on the region. Maybe something which is good in one region is bad in the other region. Because it's not like there's one uniform law that everybody has to follow. Manusmriti himself says that. Manu himself says also that what I'm proposing here should change with times. So these are very important points. That Manusmriti is not like some Quran which says it's final, nobody can change it, nobody can question it, and this will happen, that will happen, nothing like that. It's a very open document. That's one point. Second point, there are horrible things proposed in it, which were there is no evidence of even once being enforced. Like it says that if some guy who is not qualified to be hearing the Vedas and all that, he hears the Vedas, they should put lead in his ear. But there is not one instance ever recorded that anybody ever had lead put in his ear. It is somebody writing this, but it is never implemented. On the other hand, it has some very amazing, very liberal social ideas about women, about freedom. It actually has a huge amount of very positive and very good social constructs. And this has been written about by German Indologists in the early 1800s. German Indologists loved Manusmriti. They wrote about Manusmriti as one of the great achievements of humanity. Because it does have, it's far-sighted and ahead of its time in many ways. And it's pretty negative and bad in many ways also. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Mr. Rajiv, my name is Santosh Muslim. The question I had was that, with Vivek Ramaswamy on the cusp of at least reaching the VP position, what challenges do you see ahead, for him?
For Ramesh, Vivek Ramaswamy?
In terms of, because they'll call him a Brahmin and so on. So what challenges do you foresee?
I think he's a smart guy, he'll face challenges and he'll have to answer them. He'll have to figure out. So far, he hasn't compromised his Hindu identity. He's not like that other fellow, Bobby Jindal fellow. He's not like that. He's holding out on his own. Whether he'll do well or not, I don't know. We'll see. But that's a different thing. Your question is how to handle his Hindu identity.
I don't have a question, but an announcement. You can note down the date, August 10th this year. We're going to have another big program at Royal Albert Palace for Rajiv Malhotra ji. This is going to be 30th year anniversary of Infinity Foundation that he founded 30 years ago. And we're going to have a big program. So every one of you is invited, but all I want to do is to note down the date, August 10th. Put down your calendar big, bold, and we want like every one of you to come. A lot of people from India will be coming, and from here. It will be one of a kind program. Please do come. Thank you.
नमस्ते राजीव जी। राजीव जी, मैं प्रश्न नहीं पूछ रही हूँ। आपको सबसे पहले बधाई है पुस्तक लिखने के लिए। बहुत ही काम की पुस्तक लिखी आपने। और यहाँ पे जो बच्चे पैदा हुए हैं उनको ये भी नहीं मालूम कि उनकी जाति और वर्ण क्या है। जो पढ़ते हैं, हम लोग कभी ऐसे घर में ज़्यादा बात नहीं करते पेरेंट्स। तो मेरा सोचना ये कि बच्चों को हम कैसे सिखाएं। तो मैं अपनी तरफ से सोच रही हूँ कि मैं इस साल हिंदी यूएसए में जितने भी बच्चे ग्रेजुएट होने वाले हैं उन सबको आपकी पुस्तक दूंगी एज ए गिफ्ट। और मैं यही चाहती हूँ कि बाकी लोग भी इस तरह से बाल विहार या हाई स्कूल या जहाँ भी दे सकते हैं वो दें। तो धन्यवाद।
वेरी गुड, एक्सीलेंट। एक और मैं आपको खुशखबरी देता हूँ कि ये जो वर्ना जाति कास्ट की पुस्तक है इसका हिंदी में अनुवाद हो रहा है। बाय होपफुली बाय जुलाई अगस्त जब हमारा बिग इवेंट होगा तो इसकी आप हिंदी एडिशन भी लॉन्च करेंगे। Another couple of things I'll tell you, very interesting. You know, my book, The Battle for Sanskrit, you people might know, where it exposes जो संस्कृत पढ़ यहाँ पर अमेरिकन और ब्रिटिश जो वेस्टर्न लोग संस्कृत स्कॉलर्स हैं who are very powerful people and they are the ones who start this nonsense because they are the ones who interpret the Sanskrit texts. They are the ones who interpret the Vedas, the Ramayana, they call him Ram a male chauvinist and a casteist and all these things. It starts with people who understand our text and misunderstand. So this is a book criticizing those people and 400-500 pages. It's called The Battle for Sanskrit. Means I am taking back the Sanskrit interpretation back to our heritage and fighting those who are doing the wrong thing. Now in India there is Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan, government body that is the main body for promoting Sanskrit, and about 32-33 Sanskrit universities in India. They have about 1 lakh students total, lot of students. And they have all become organized into one big national Sanskrit university. So the chancellor of that wrote to me 2 years ago saying that they want to set up a team of Sanskrit scholars and translate my book into Sanskrit. And the Sanskrit edition of this Battle for Sanskrit will become a textbook that they will use whenever they are training people in the master's level. After learning the language, then they have to read the text. So far they could only read Vedas and old texts. But nothing new about society, nothing new about today's, what is happening, what are the challenges. So if this becomes a text that every future Sanskrit scholar will study, then these scholars will go and come back and they will become our team to fight back because we will have 1 lakh students a year coming out who know about our side of the problem. So the good news is that this book is now, after 2 years, this book is ready. It is in final review and we'll have it published by middle of year. We'll have Sanskrit people learning about the battle for Sanskrit.
Jai Shri Ram, Rajiv ji. My name is Amit. I would like to urge you to explain the students in this country or the young generation in this country more scientifically about the Jati, Varna and caste or untouchability which they would hear from different sources which used to happen in India. For an example, I still recall 40 years back, my nani never used to allow people from different, they were jamidars, but she never used to allow the people from different professions, like somebody who's doing leather work, somebody is doing cattle, raising chickens or goats. She would not allow to use the home utensils to give them the water or the food. They will be welcome, they will be given everything. But I still remember when I really pressed it and asked that why it is like that, she said that we don't have any defense against the diseases or bacteria or virus. She explained it in Marathi local language. These people they live on farm, they move from town to town. These people work very closely with dead animals, they go fishing. And
basically, it's a hygiene system.
It's a hygiene. That time there was
it started in the hygiene system. Correct. It started in the hygiene system. That the purest thing which are deities, murtis, very pure, these are very important to us. And the dirtiest things are, people working with beef and with leather and, those kind of bad things and corpses and whatnot. So the people who are all the time doing that, don't have that hygiene sense, should not be the ones touching these holy things, these spiritual things. It started like that.
Yeah, it started like that, but she didn't even give an angle of God or deities. She gave the angle of defending the family. Because at that time, besides penicillin, there was no other antibiotic or any other medication for, today's COVID has kind of emerged from people to people, contact through contacts. And I think that was a great way of limiting the diseases within the towns and your smaller community. I think that angle would help kids to understand it in a better perspective. Thank you.
Namaste, Mr. Samir. I have two questions. First question is, why the Buddhism type in India? So basically Buddhism born in India and then afterwards it died. So why? So what is your thought?
Yeah, let me answer that first. Let me answer because I'll forget otherwise. So Buddhism was it was not householder. Buddhism, they would give up their family and live as monks, single monks in a monastery. So a monastery could have thousands of monks. A place like Nalanda could have tens of thousands. So very centralized. Whereas in Hinduism, the guru and the priest, whatever, all the Brahmins, whoever is the caretaker of the faith, they are householders, they have family. So they're not leaving the family and living in one separate place. When all the Buddhists of New Jersey living in one vihar, one big institution with the closed walls, it's very easy to surround them and finish them off. Very easy. But if you have Hindus there, if there are 1 lakh Buddhists living all in one place, it's very easy to destroy the whole of Buddhism in a few places. Whereas if you have the same 1 lakh Hindus, they're scattered in all over everybody here and there, it's very difficult to catch hold of so many of them. So one was the decentralized social structure of the Hindus and the centralized social structure of the Buddhists, because they believe that you become a monk and this becomes your lifelong thing and then you live with other monks. This is a very important point. Second, the Hindus who had the Kshatriyas would fight back also. Buddhists did not. So this is part of the vulnerability the Buddhists had. Buddhists more easily accepted that this thing and did not have the way to fight back. So these are some, when you look at what happened, if you look at how they destroyed Nalanda, for example, you will see this happening over and over again.
My second question is related with the Dravid movement.
So what movement?
Dravidian movement
Dravidian.
happening in South India. So how do you see it is anti-caste or it is pro-caste?
So the Dravidian movement is started by this guy, Bishop Caldwell. This Max Muller started the Aryan and Bishop Caldwell started the Dravidian. And in one of the most prestigious places in Chennai, the big round circle, they have Bishop Caldwell statue. He is a huge statue. They worship this guy. So he was a Scottish minister, Christian minister, evangelist. He started the Dravidian movement because he felt that this would be good for his thing, And the Tamil people, until the early 20th century, did not subscribe to the Dravidian movement. They did not. The Dravidian movement is only a very recent one. If you look at the Tamil classics, the Tamil old texts, which are very old, they have no sense of we are different from the North Indians, we are Dravidians. There is no sense, there is no hint of us versus Aryan, those Aryans. The word Aryan is not there, Dravidian is not there. In their own text is not there. So when you start with the Tirukural, which is one of their texts, and there are few major texts, you will find that the ideas are very Hindu type, nature, deities, similar, unity consciousness, all of that. And you will find there is a total absence. There is not one shlok that they can come out with which says we are Dravidian, they are Aryan, we are whatever. That separation of consciousness of identity is absent in their own earliest classics. So you have to figure out when it came, why it came, and how. So that's the short answer of this Dravidian movement. Now the Dravidian movement become very strong, and it's a political movement, and now it's a very difficult movement to track because the DMK, the D is Dravidian, the AIDMK, the D is also Dravidian only. So one is more Dravidian than the other. That is the like the Shiites and Sunnis, who is the more radical Muslim. It's that kind of a thing. It's a pretty bad situation.
Namaste Rajiv ji, my name is Smita. One follow-up question on the Buddhist thing. Was there a demographic angle too, because monks are celibate, they don't have children, and was that also a problem? And is there a lesson for us Hindus to learn from that? And I also have another question.
Yeah, I think that's a factor. That's a factor because if the people who are the more successful, higher elite, whatever you want to call them, they are being told leave the family, remain single, go to this big vihar and live there your whole life. Pursue this. That is your calling. Then then they will have less birth rate. They'll be more vulnerable to attack also. So there are different factors like that. The word Bihar, the Buddhists used for all their ashram, what we call ashram, universities. And the modern word Bihar comes from Bihar. So I told my Bihari friends that you should be proud that your ancestors were like the Ivy Leagues of the world. Your name is like Ivy League, that's your name. Because they're the Bihars were like the Ivy Leagues, they would attract the cream of students from China and Cambodia and Mongolia and Vietnam and all the Asian kings. Chinese people would send for many dynasties, they would send their cream there to learn and bring the knowledge back.
So my other question is, so here we try to keep, around the caste conversation, we try to keep the context here whenever we are arguing with someone or when we are talking about our own experiences here. But there will be some dharmacharya in India who's in a very important, very revered, pitha or something, and then they make comments that are not really, reflective of our thinking here. So that is something that is thrown back at us. How do we respond to those?
I think first you should say that it's like the laws that Islam has in Saudi Arabia regarding women, what they have to, how they have to be, or in Iran, are not the basis for persecuting them in this country. Because if a Muslim here had 4 wives, that would be against the American law. But you cannot persecute a Muslim on the basis that his brother or his father in Saudi Arabia has got 4 wives. I mean, how they're behaving there, not his liability. You can say, I don't care damn about it, you go after him. I'm okay. So you have to be American Hindus, very clearly. You have to say, we live here, we pay our taxes, we're very good citizens, we're contributing in all kinds of ways, and this is a pluralistic society, we have all the rights, and we are enjoying those rights. And you have to, if you have a problem with us in this country, let's discuss it. If you have a problem with them in that country, you go talk to the Indian government and talk to the ministry, and that's something for you to worry about, none of my business. I think that's a good starting point.
I think the point that you mentioned, Rajiv, is really important because what ends up happening is, in the fight that we saw in California, one of the challenges with Indian people, because most of us are born and raised in India, is we straight away put on the Indian hat and forget the American hat. And we don't talk about being American Hindus, we start defending or saying, oh, this was in India, but it's not meant this way. It goes into an whole argument, then the other side picks that up and defeats you on that. As they say in politics, when you start to explain, you're losing. So that's the problem we face. So I'm really happy you mentioned about American Hindus because we have things over here. We don't need to worry about that.
I think our people are very intelligent, and the problem of being too intelligent is that you take an issue and you over-abstract it and over-generalize it. So when you criticize me for something, I should take the defense required, whatever I require to hit back, very sharp. If I over-generalize it and start trying to defend everybody and so on, billions of people all over, then I have put a burden on my shoulders I don't need to. We don't need to. In the US context, there is no reason for you to accept the responsibility of defending India or Modi or government. That's your private life. That's your private life. But you're living here and you want to be as much. See, you tell the fellow that you are a Christian. I don't expect you to defend what the church has done in Nigeria, where they caught slaves there, or they've been caught with pedophiles somewhere, you know, whatever the hell they're doing in different countries. I'm not expecting you to be responsible for that. If you are misbehaving in this country, then law against you. Okay? But whatever is happening to some Christian somewhere is not your problem. So same thing for us. You should not take on responsibilities that are not ours.
Namaste, my name is Anish. So last year in school they were teaching about the caste system. So I told them that we never really had any such thing as a caste system, and it was a Varna Jati system. So then he said that I was correct, and the caste system was imposed by us thousands of years later by Westerners. But I know in coming years they're going to go back to teaching that Hinduism revolves around the caste system because that's how it is in textbooks. So how do we get the right information to be taught in schools in coming years?
So you should take a few copies of my book. You should take a few copies of my book, give them to your history teachers and cultural studies teachers, and put one in the library. And say, look, here is a lot of evidence, and if you want to talk to the author, call him and you can have a debate with him.
Great question.
Rajiv ji, namaste. My name is Kailas. I have a two-part question. Question one, you mentioned an actionable point for all of us to write a 5-pager, 20-pager on the topics in your book. That's a great idea. I would like to know if CoHNA or any other platform can provide a platform for this so that this can be somebody who's starting new can get a wider audience, irrespective of the quality of work. And that can throw up real quality work in time to come. So I don't know if that's possible at all, but
yeah, I mean, if you're willing to write, we have certain standards, obviously, so we can't just put anything and everything on the web, but more than happy to put on things on our website, blogs. If you have some kind of a material that's standard, meets the standards, we can even ask authors to publish it on American Economy or some other places, popular websites. So please, if you're writing something, and if you're interested in that, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. The second part
question. And you can always write as large as you want, book review, and put it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And the author would love it. I mean, if you go to our book, some of my books we got over 500 reviews. You can, every one of you could go to Amazon, Varna Jati Caste book, and write a review. You express yourself, and it goes to the world.
That's a great idea. The second part of the question is, you mentioned Bill Ackman and activism against what has happened in Harvard and 4 other Ivy colleges. You have taken on the likes of Anand Mahindra. You have actually named them out.
I've not only named him, I have a whole chapter on him. I have another chapter on Mittal,
right.
And I have a chapter on Piramal. And we have written about Bajaj, we have written about Tatas, we have written about all these kind of people. And I have only started because if I were to tell you what all is happening with in the name of these Ambanis,
right.
Probably the worst and most vicious Hindu-phobic is a scholar, Professor Hanson, in Stanford.
Right.
Do you know what his job title is? He's called the Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani Professor. They named their company and they named their father. And they're given millions of dollars and hired this guy. If you were to look at his books, it is the most anti-India, anti-Hindu guy around. And our richest man funding him. There is a lot of nonsense. And I know it's not goody-goody, but I'm not goody-goody. I mean, I'm getting old. I have to tell people what, even when I was not old, I was telling people like this. But now I have nothing to fear. What is there to fear about? I'm not asking for any reward, this, that, anything great. I don't want to expect anything. And so, you know, they can't hire me, they can't fire me. So I have to speak up.
So how can we as Americans who don't buy geophones or Mahindra Jeeps kind of influence these people not to fund Harvard or Stanford or such chairs?
I think you can just shame them, and that is working. I think these people are on the back foot. You know, some of these people, firstly, none of them have the audacity and courage like Bill Ackman, who's a Jewish guy, to say, hey, I'm going to stop giving them money and I'm going to protest against them and whatnot. None of them have that much confidence. Okay, they're still into this, inferiority complex. They want to suck up to the white man and be like one of him and get a pat on the back. They don't have that courage and confidence, no matter how much money they have. But the point is that when you name them, and we go on and on, and so many people are now, I'm not the only guy, now every time something happens, they tag Anand Mahindra and say, what are you doing about it? So they are affected. So they will not withdraw. I mean, it would be great if we were to write a letter to the Mahindra Center and say, I'm withdrawing my money unless you do 1, 2, 3, 4, these things. And you should stop doing A, B, C, and you should start doing 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, I'm stopping your money. That would be very good. He's not going to do that. But next time he has to give money, he will think twice. And this guy recently, what was his name? The guy who Paytm, Sharma. I don't know if you followed the thread on Twitter.
He withdrew his...
He went and somewhere in Gujarat and he was given this big thing that, oh, he's one of these Make in India patriotic fellows. And then we put out a post saying that in our book, Stakes in the Ganga, he is the guy who's been funding Harvard and here he's given money, this, that. So very quickly he wrote back saying, no sir, must be a mistake, I'm not giving money. And so then we wrote another one. And we showed a press release where he's standing there and saying, I'm giving all this money to Harvard. So more people then came back and said, oh, you're a liar. So you're not only giving money, but you are telling lies. Why don't you tell the truth? So we exchanged the private DMs. He called me within 5 minutes. He said, oh no sir, I'm not doing this, that. He called me, we had a long chat. Very nice guy. Okay. And he said to me, he said, I have signed an agreement. I'm telling you that I have signed an agreement. But I'm also telling you I will not pay them anything. I said, well, then I'm very happy. So I put out a tweet saying that I'm very congratulations to this guy. He's not going to give them any money. He signed an agreement, but he's not going to give them any money. I think it works. This kind of publicly going after these guys works. Because some of them, they have this thing about they want to be in the good books of everybody, and now they have to make a choice. Do they want to be in the good books, the Harvard people, or the Aam Aadmi in India, the common person? And if the common person knows that there is a contradiction, there is a double life, then force them to make a choice.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Okay, one more.
Mr. Rajiv, so adding on to the question by the school kid, so how do we change the narrative in the textbooks? So before it's getting, we give the copy of your book to the teacher, but the book is already printed. So we need to do some action in correcting that.
So for our 30th anniversary, we are putting out many books on impact we've had. What are the big projects we funded? What impact we had? One of them is on interventions in the school system in the United States. We've had about 15 projects. I was the Commissioner of Asian Studies in New Jersey under Governor McGreevey. We funded somebody regarding the Virginia textbooks, Texas textbooks, an organization called CAPIM in California for the California textbooks. So we've been doing this for like 20 years, 25 years. So this is a very long-term process. The point is, we never got a critical mass of funding and people support. We always were a few people trying to make noise and criticize and get back. But we never got, like the Muslims, they're organized. They have all the mosques are going to talk about it. Everybody going to call this publisher Islamophobic, and they'll all write petitions to their senators and congressmen. I mean, they have the ability to raise hell. We don't have that. This is a problem. The problem is that Guru's not going to stick their neck out. Go to all the Hindu mandirs and ashrams in New Jersey and say, sign this petition. I would like Nikunj to draft a petition on something, and you guys volunteer. Every one of you say, okay, I'll go to 5 temples. My job is to get these 5 temples, top person in charge of the temple, president or whoever, to sign a petition. I challenge you to do that. It's not so easy. They'll give you a room, they'll give you some samosas also, they give you nice, they'll be very nice, this is good. At least they're doing that now. They were not doing that earlier. But they're not going to stick their neck out. This is the problem. Yeah, unless you see the Indian industrialists are giving money to the wrong people, and we are calling it out. I've also been calling out the gurus and our own, because they also have to be told. You're teaching us all these things to our kids, nice things, good things, Gita and all. But in Gita, the basic lesson is you have to go and fight in the Kurukshetra. So this is the Kurukshetra we're talking about. This is the Kurukshetra. And these people we are fighting are the Duryodhans. They are the today's Duryodhans. So our gurus have to teach how to fight that also. They're not doing it.
So we can go on and on. I know because Rajiv he has amazing energy. He said he can go on for another few hours, I'm sure. But we have to vacate the room because there's another function happening. So I really want to thank Rajiv ji for this wonderful engaging session. This is just the beginning. We're really trying to support, of course, Rajiv ji on the 30th anniversary. So August 10th, I urge everybody to be there. Last year we had over 1,000 people. This year we maybe have more. Who knows? Let's see. 2,000. Yeah. So like want to get to yeah, exactly. So let's do that. And I also want to thank all of you for coming here. I think this is really important. Some of our organizational partners are here. We talked about the Hindu American Pact of New York. The leadership of the Indian Business Association is also here. So Dhiren Bhai and the team are here. Thank you for coming as well. I think it's really important to showcase that when we have organizations supporting us, we can make this much better and more impactful thing. Hindi USA as well, Devendra ji has always been supporting our work. So I really want to thank, and of course, Vartal Mandir has given us this wonderful space. And so there are so many great organizations that are now coming together, working together, and we will continue to do so. This is just the beginning, and I hope that Rajiv ji is available, and we'll talk more about this, for a nationwide tour of this topic, very, very important topic. I wish that we did this earlier, but better late than never. So the battle has just begun, and the Kurukshetra is open for us. So namaskar and thank you all. Saraj, yes.
मेरा प्रश्न कोई भी नहीं है, लेकिन मैं राजीव जी भाई साहब के अनुभव और इनकी लेखनी को इंडियन बिजनेस एसोसिएशन और पूरे भारतीय समाज की तरफ से सलाम करना चाहता हूँ, प्रणाम करना चाहता हूँ, साधुवाद देना चाहता हूँ। जब भी आपके बारे में सुना, जब भी आपको पढ़ा, एक अलग सी अनुभूति से महसूस हुई है। गॉड ब्लेस यू सर।
And if you haven't had it, maybe some chai, please grab something. And please make sure you take the books. Rajiv ji's books are also on sale in the back, so other books, if you would like to purchase them, they're available there. But the Jati Varna Caste book is free for everybody. If you want to take some copies, we have a whole bunch of them. So thank you and namaskar. Yes, and if you want, there's an exhibition over on the other side. So if you would like to see the exhibition on Ramayana, it's really nice. Just walk around and go to the other side.